What is up? Happy Tuesday night. So much stuff to get to. Some crazy, some wacky, a lot of the usual insanity that goes on in the world of politics and some pop culture stuff as well. And Democrats, you are doing everything you can to run at what I see as a completely losing argument. I understand what you're trying to do when it comes to Mr. Garcia, who is in El Salvador. If you guys don't know, the fight that's going on, and they just ruled a little while ago that not quite held in contempt, but maybe getting there, about the guy from Maryland who was sent to El Salvador. Everybody's like, he was sent there wrongly. And Bukele, the president of El Salvador, is like, yeah, we're not sending him back. He was in the White House yesterday. Got a much better reception than Zelensky did. So this is very interesting. So this is a Democrat who is vowing to go there and get him back, I guess, if nothing changes from here on out.
President Bukele, and I look forward to meeting with him. I've requested to meet with him. I reached out to the ambassador here to ask to meet while he's here. But I've also made clear if we can't meet here, I do intend to go to El Salvador to discuss the release of this individual who is illegally detained, a Maryland man who's the father of 3 in a notorious prison in El Salvador. And I believe the president of El Salvador will recognize why it's important to allow him to return to the United States of America, because it is absolutely unjust and illegal to have this Marylander detained one more day in a notorious prison in El Salvador. Of course, President Trump could have just said, bring him home. Of course, he could have done that. But this is an administration that has lied about Mr. Abrego Garcia, right? The vice president of the United States tweeted out that he had a criminal record. That was a lie. They're just lying. They've gotten caught lying. They don't want to admit it. And they have an obligation to bring him home. But I will say the president of El Salvador should not now take it upon himself to say that he is detaining him for one more day, because that is kidnapping. I understand that the attorney general said that we would provide a plane to bring him home. So all the president of El Salvador has to do now is hand over and release an innocent man and let him come home to his family.
Well, there's so much we have to unpack there. First of all, I don't know how it's kidnapping. He is not a citizen of this country. And while there was, and I want everybody to understand it, there was a order to not deport by a judge while they went through his claim. And there was also an order to hold him and to remove him, but El Salvador wasn't one of the places. Okay. Kidnapping, dude, it's his home country. You are hanging your hat. The hill you're dying on isn't about due process, which is a good hill. Okay. It is a hill of, you are willing to go out of your way. And by the way, if you're in Maryland right now and you're looking around and you're going, you're fighting really hard for a lot of things here that maybe you should fight for some other stuff. Right? Maybe we feel like we're getting left out. This is what you are doing, because this is about Trump, and this is not about this person. I mean, it's such horse shit. And they continue to play this game of, we're going to die on this hill. So check this out. And we're going to get to if you want to fight about due process, I'm fine with that. That's a good thing. I think he should be brought back. I think he should get his due process, and then he's going to be sent out again because he's not an American citizen. And by the way, one thing that the senator did say, they've proven nothing in court about him having a criminal record. That is true. They've proven nothing, but he's still here illegally. So that gives the president and the United States itself the right to go, yeah, you have to leave. You do. So continue to do what you're doing, and you're going to continue to get what you get, which is a loss after a loss after a loss when it comes to elections, because Even if the Republicans jack the pooch at times, Democrats, you guys run and die on the dumbest hills, and you pick the just, I say it almost every day on my show. The Democrats can go out there and they could say, hey, you know what? What's the worst thing right now that's out there? They'll be like, oh, it's this. Should we avoid that? No, run at it with all your might, like a fat kid chasing a donut, and you're hungry. And they do.
On the all-new Monday
Keith
Countdown
Olbermann
podcast, Kristi Noem, the head of the Department of Homeland Security, and Tom Homan, the head of ICE, must be arrested immediately for contempt of court. They're defying court orders to return Mr. Abrego Garcia from captivity and torture in El Salvador. And they and Trump are on the verge of being in contempt of court of the Supreme Court, as Trump begins to indicate he will not abide by its rulings about returning Abrego to this country.
Yeah. Well, first of all, didn't know you were alive. I mean, in the business anymore. I knew you were alive, but I know you were still alive doing stuff, which is good for you, Keith. You're not going to have anybody arrested. They're not in contempt of court. Even today, right? They're the U.S. attorneys are there looking at the judge. They didn't even say, hey, you guys are in contempt of court. They did none of that stuff. Are they getting to that point? Yes. Do you want to have the argument? And you can easily do about due process and these things. That's why I would say measure twice, cut once, measure sometimes 3 times, cut once. Nothing wrong with that. That being said, no, not arresting them, not doing any of those things. If Trump starts to defy orders, we have to have a serious conversation as a country. But that includes Congress, and as we all know, Congress doesn't do skaboosh. Nothing. But we're not there yet. Now, this guy knows a little bit about the law. All right? Professor Dershowitz here, talking about Mr. Garcia and the case itself earlier today on News Nation, which, by the way, if you have a chance, go watch News Nation. Highly recommend News Nation. They do as good a job, if not better, than 99.9% of people of coming across as fair, giving all kinds of, voices to all kinds of sides, which I love.
Now, let me start with you, Dersh. First of all, I thought the court ruled that they have to return this man. They did not respect due process, and they seem to be saying that the court ruled in their favor. What am I missing here?
This is a very simple case. If not for the fact that a judge had stayed his deportation on the ground that he had pending a claim of asylum. A claim of asylum, very simple. You can deport without any further due process anybody who's in the country illegally. This guy is in the country illegally. And if he didn't have a court order that said, wait a minute, you're here illegally, but you've made an application to stay here even though you're here illegally in order to avoid being sent back to El Salvador because you think you'll be killed in El Salvador. It's only that court order, technically, which is the mistake. And it is a mistake because they did violate a court order. But once he's given his asylum claim, and if that's denied, he can easily be deported because he's an illegal alien. It doesn't matter whether he's committed crimes or anything else. You have no right to stay in the country if you came into the country illegally.
That seems as straightforward as it gets. Due process, he even says, bring him back, give him his day in court, and go from there. This is insane, continues to be insane, and it's not because there aren't people that have come here illegally that aren't flying under the radar, that aren't adding to our economy, who are just trying to feed their families. I would do it if I was in some shithole country. I can't believe you said that. I said it because it's true and you know it and I know it and everybody knows it, so we shouldn't get all freaked out about it. You're in some country that is full of corruption, that is probably over some times had us, meddling in areas that we shouldn't have been meddling in and caused a little bit of disruption. You got gang warfare, you got drugs, you have all of these things, and you feel you have nothing and you need to take care of your family. I would do it. Most people would do it. You'd be foolish to say you wouldn't if given the opportunity. But I also would expect I'm in somebody's country illegally. And at some point in time, there could be a knock at the door. And at some point in time, I could be asked out and gone. That's always a possibility. But that being said, the continuous fight over this, and they're picking the wrong lane. If you want to talk about the due process, I get that. Like I said, I'm about giving due process. It is the time that I think the Republicans, in particular, Trump administration, waste fighting a battle in public that they don't need to fight when it comes to things like this. They can make it easier on themselves. And I hope they do in the future, because it gives them nothing to talk about when you do it this way. And yes, there's going to be mistakes. I do not expect perfection from the Trump administration or any other administration. That being said, Democrats, this is why you struggle. This is why you fail. This is Ro Khanna talking about the Democrats, because they keep asking everybody, hey, who's the leader of the Democrats? Who's the leader of the Democrats? Do you know? I have no idea. I heard it was Stephen A. Smith, but I could be wrong. Are you sure? Yeah, because he's about the only one who seems to think that he may even want the gig, which is weird because he said he didn't want it. But the reality is he looks around and goes, well, I could probably run for president. But, who knows? Ro Khanna, who, by the way, is a not insane Democrat who can easily work across the aisle, and who I just laugh and say, this is a guy that people could listen to, who I think could get moderate Republicans and Democrats to come together, be part of the exhaustive majority.
And so who would you say is the leader of the Democratic Party right now?
Well, the leader in the House of Representatives is Hakeem Jeffries, and he will be the next Speaker of the House. He's earned that.
He is the voice, though, of the Democratic Party?
I love that. Are you okay? I didn't ask you who was the person who's like, who's got the captain's armband? Who's the person that's like the dude, the lady? Who's that person that you're like, that's who we turn to, right? And our house is on fire. It's the old adage, right? Like in life, there are certain things. Everybody knows this, right? Work, wherever you are. If something happens, maybe you're that person. Maybe there's other people inside of the office you work at where you're like, I'd follow that guy. That I'm not following that one, but I'd follow that one.
Is that who the Democrats should be rallying around, pushing forward? That's who should be driving the message?
Well, I think we've got a whole new generation of talent, people who are speaking out on economic issues. I gave a speech in Cleveland on economic patriotism, our vision of how we're going to bring prosperity and manufacturing back around the country. But the most urgent issue is to stand up against the attacks on the rule of law, on the Constitution, on universities, and then to make sure that we elect Hakeem Jeffries Speaker of the House so we have one check on Donald Trump's unconstitutional actions.
Do you think, in terms of just political strategy, obviously you all have a lot of priorities, I hear you, about what you're trying to do, but in terms of political strategy, is that step one, getting the House back in the midterms?
No, I think step one is to stand up for the Constitution. We have people in this country who are getting knocks on doors from police, who are not getting due process. Some of them deported to an El Salvador prison where they're potentially being tortured. And that needs to stop. You have the Supreme Court 9-0 saying that this is unconstitutional, that the Trump administration needs to facilitate the return. This is a huge crisis. I think every Democrat needs to be speaking out about that. Democrats need to be standing up for President Garber at Harvard University, who had the courage to stand up to the administration's basic takeover of freedom of speech. So we have an immediate issue right now, which is standing up for the Constitution. After that, politically, yes, making Hakeem Jeffries Speaker is important. But right now we have a very immediate fight.
And the immediate fight is you're losing a lot of that. I understand. Look, go for the rule of law. That's a smart thing. Easy to do, by the way, because I think most people agree. Yeah, the rule of law is very important. We should follow that. The Constitution, I've said it over and over again. If Trump looks at the Supreme Court and says, nah, I'm not going to do whatever you guys say, we have a serious issue that needs to be dealt with. And that's when I look at Congress and say, well, are you going to, you're going to shit it off the pot, or are you guys just useless? One of the things, though, when I sit here and I look at, and he brought up like Harvard and stuff. Somebody asked me earlier, James, actually, S. Jones Jackson right there said, hey, what about, like Harvard's a perfect example. A vast majority of that money that goes to Harvard, that is, everybody's like, why does Harvard, who's got $55 billion in their endowment, get any money? Most of it last year, like 638 million or 683 million went to, and I mean a vast majority of it, went to research. The government benefits from that. We benefit from that. That's a good thing. About 33, million or so went to the classroom. Harvard and all of these schools, though, have failed, and they have failed everybody. College, when I was a kid growing up, that was a way long time ago, lads. It's one of those places where it's supposed to be the bastion of free speech, right? You go there, you're the first time away from home for many people, and you're gonna, maybe you grew up in a very liberal home, but you might run into some conservatives. Maybe you grew up in a home that was really stuffy and conservative. You could run into some liberals, and you were going to share ideas. It is now a one idea place, and Harvard and most of the Ivy Leagues and a lot of these big college campuses have been taken over by ideology and this cultural Marxism that has pushed insanity to the point where it's not just Trump. Let's not forget that after October 7th, and when all of this stuff really started to pick up steam, you had a lot of people out there who were pulling money because they were uncomfortable with what they were seeing. And so it's not just the government. It's not. I don't want the government in colleges telling them, hey, these are the curriculum that you can follow and you must. I don't want that. But you had to expect at some point in time, the pendulum would swing back another way. And that's the problem with the world that we live in now. It is the extremes take over, then we get fed up and we're like, and we go the other direction. And it comes back, and we got to stop that. We have to. This is us. The extremes are like, this is us. This big, powerful, exhausted majority that needs to become the extreme majority, where we're the extreme of common sense and we take back the conversation. Everybody wants checks and balances in a certain place. It isn't going to happen the way that people want. But Harvard and them had to know you can't expect that you were going to have an only left-leaning campus everywhere and not expect that at some point in time you were going to be checked. And I think the administration's going too far? We're going to find out when it goes to court. Let me tell you how this is going to work. They're going to choose, Harvard's going to sue. They're going to choose a court in a district where they know they're going to get a like-minded judge who's going to see the things the way that they see it. From there, they'll win. Then it'll be appealed and eventually get to the Supreme Court, because that's the way that all of these things are going in today's world. It goes from point A to point B, and then once it goes to there from that appeal, right to Z, can we get this to there? And we'll figure it out. Do I know what that looks like when it gets there? No, I don't, because I don't know what the Supreme Court's going to do on any given day. And by the way, that 9-0 ruling they talked about, there was a lot of arm twisting and certain things like that. There's one of the things Dershowitz talks about. And remember, one of the things the Supreme Court didn't want to do when it came to the guy sent to El Salvador was they wanted to say, you have to facilitate this. So you got to go and you got to do this. You got to send this guy, plane and try to get him back, make some phone calls. If you could do that, it'd be pretty swell. So they go and they kind of do that. But they said, yeah, we got to facilitate it. We've got to try to do something. You didn't say we absolutely had to. And the Supreme Court stopped right there saying you must, because they also recognize we're the Supreme Court of the United States. He's in a different country. He is a citizen of that country. That is a foreign issue, of which that is the purview of the president, that he must handle that. So we don't want, it's the co-equal branches of government. And they didn't want to seem like they were overstepping. So they're doing everything they can to try to urge and push and prod, with recognizing that one of the things the president absolutely has when it comes to, like, if you were to go open up a big book and go, these are the things I'm really allowed to do, immigration is one of them. So this will be interesting to see the way it plays itself out. And the Harvard thing is going to be, somebody said, Harvard alum judge, probably, but it is going to go to the top. And we'll see what happens from there. And I don't know which way it'll go. I don't think anybody knows which way it's going to go, because this court is at times kind of all over the place. And people don't know how it's going to react. It's become too political. We've focused too much on cultural issues. And for those of you who don't know, if you go look at the results, because everybody thinks that every case is 5-4. It's not. A vast majority of cases are 8-1, 7-2, 9-0. So that's the reality of it. But those are a lot of times constitutional questions about things like property, certain things like that. These are cultural issues, and those are the ones that cause the biggest stink, make the biggest noise, and the ones that the media pays attention to. Speaking of paying attention or not paying attention, this is why you should homeschool your kids. And I'm not saying that as a joke. If you have the opportunity, we're blessed to be able to homeschool our kids, partially because I want to give them that freedom to be able to do a lot of things. We travel a lot is another side of it. And I don't want their spirit taken as much as I don't want them exposed to insane, ridiculous stuff that goes on out there. It's the Burlington School District sent out a questionnaire. And you know what's funny? Whenever I talk to, and because I'm doing this here, I can play this. I will tell you this. I always, because I'll hear from liberals saying, oh, you're overreacting, you're stupid. The stuff that these kids got sent, or a questionnaire at 11 to do, if I read those things on the air on my radio program, I would be in deep shit and may even be fired. So I don't think an 11-year-old should be going through a questionnaire, asking them questions like, well, the parents will tell you.
Contact with another person. Sexual contact. I did. And she told she was opted out. But she was still told the survey was mandatory. So I have screenshots from her. Sexual contacts includes things such as kissing, touching, sexual intercourse. Have you ever had sexual intercourse including vagina sex, which is when a penis goes inside of a vagina, oral sex, which is contact between the mouth and the genitals, anal sex, which is when a penis goes in the anus, in parentheses, but in the use of toys or props, vaginal or anal.
These things keep happening over and over again, and I'm tired of having to fight for the right of my child and every other child to not have sexual content pushed on them. They're in middle school. Please let them go through puberty without this stuff being pushed on them. Parents are tired of it. I don't like to be up here. I hate this. I hate conflict. But what I hate more is knowing the impact of kids, of this stuff getting pushed on them and normalizing it to them. I was one of those parents who opted my kid out because as soon as I saw it, I said, I don't want my kid taking this. And he took it. And I'm disgusted that he had to answer those questions.
Did he take it?
He didn't. They told him he had to take it, and he didn't think anything of it.
Explain to me what I'm supposed to tell my 11-year-old daughter about butt and anus sex and sex toys. Please, I'll give you the rest of my time.
That doesn't, when you see it in writing, it is not good. 11-year-olds shouldn't be looking at that. 15, 16, 17-year-olds shouldn't be. That's not something for school. It is, why is it a questionnaire? I mean, these things are, who thinks of this shit? Who decides this was a good idea? The hell are you thinking? And when you tell people, hey, parents, this right here is what we're doing, why we're doing it, I don't know, and you can opt out, and then the kids are not allowed to opt out, but must take the damn thing. Who the hell is that for? Tell me. Tell me, who is that for? Why are you asking an 11-year-old about any of that stuff? Why are you asking an 11-year-old about sex toys? The hell is wrong with you? You want to know why people think, man, they're sexualizing our youngsters? Yeah, you think? 100%. The hell is that about? Keep doing that stupid, insane things and keep getting what you get. This is not about, oh, teachers are bad. Or no, this is about people are making conscious decisions to give kids things that they have no right seeing. They have no right reading. Shouldn't be anywhere near a classroom. I'm 54. I went to school. I mean, we all had sex ed. It was like 2 classes. It was like, this is how you could get someone pregnant. Like, ew. And we moved on. It was never like, you ever had a 3-way? Timmy, when you're done with kickball, come on in here. I want to ask you if you've ever been to an orgy. What? This is why people are pissed. This is why parents are pissed. I would have lost my mind. My wife would have said, you can't go because no. And I'd have been like, I'm going to go. Tell me, I'm waiting. I continue to wait every day. When I tell people, and especially, and it comes from in particular, the uber left wackadoos who will say, well, I don't know, tell me that is something that a child should see. And if it's such a good thing, then why can't I go on the air and the FCC and would throw me off the air and I'd be in trouble and all the stations that I'm on would be in trouble. Tell me why I can't do something like that. Because you shouldn't. It's that simple. There are issues, and our schools have really got to start to figure some shit out. Because it shouldn't be teachers and parents fighting, and it shouldn't be school boards overrunning what parents want. Whatever happened to, hey, you're going to go in, you're going to get a bit of an education, you're going to learn, and we're going to send you on your way. And your parents are going to help you with a lot of that other stuff. And somewhere along the line, we've decided that we have to teach them things that there's just no way they should be learning. Hell, they should be learning some of that stuff in college. It's just, what in God's name are you thinking? And I'm always fascinated by the fact that nobody is sitting in a room with these idiots and saying, hey, guys, hey, they, thems, hey, pronoun folk, how about no? No. Why not? Because it's a dumb idea. Kids shouldn't be reading it. And none of you here obviously have children. Nobody's ever in the room that says, you know what? Maybe no. In your head, it might sound good, but in real life, it's going to get you, well, blown out, if you will, on the internet. And you're going to have pissed off, angry parents out here throwing an effing fit, as they should be. I mean, at that point in time, it's like, hey, you know what? I did my oral book report. What'd you do? I read Penthouse Forum. Oh, I don't think that's right. No, it's not. Get your head out your ass. It's that simple. Solid fun show as always. Enjoy it. A lot of stuff tomorrow. We're going to get to a bunch of crazy stuff. And some good stuff coming this week too. I think I'm working on getting Jason Whitlock do some stuff with us here, which I think would be really cool. He and I had a conversation today that was good, enjoyable, about a lot of stuff like this and the insanity of going on, especially with the young kids in America, and having a real conversation about race in this country, which I think we need to have a real conversation about, especially when it came to, the situation that's going on in Texas with, the horror of what took place with Austin Metcalf and Carmelo Anthony, not the basketball player. I just have to remind everybody. And a conversation about that I think we need to have in this country. So some good stuff coming up. Check me out tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 9 Pacific, 9 to noon on the East Coast. And, of course, you can grab the podcast. Go to ChadBensonShow.com. Make sure you like and subscribe here. You guys have a blessed rest of your Tuesday night. And we will.